and get started. And people will continue to trickle in, and that's totally fine. So again, welcome to our WastewaterSCAN monthly partner meeting. My name is Marlene. I'm one of the directors of WastewaterSCAN, and I'm a professor at Emory. Allie, who is our other director, is not here today. And so you will see more in a few minutes from Amanda and Stephen, who are here on the call. Amanda, you see all the time and you may recognize, and Stephen is on our team here at Emory. So we're all going to share a little bit with you today. So a little bit again about who we are. We always repeat this so we all know that we're on the same page. So WastewaterSCAN is a national effort based at Stanford to create this national network using consistent methods for monitoring diseases. So I just said I'm one of the program directors. I'm based at Emory, and then Allie is at Stanford. Our scaling partners are Verily and the National League of Cities, and then our local partners are who this call is for. So the goal is for this call to be for our partners who are in public works and wastewater officials and state and local public health officials. So thank you as always, I think we know you pretty well now. So thank you all of you for being here today. Quick program overview of where we are at lately. So right now we have 148 plants that are sampling across the country. This represents almost 12% of the US population and represents 40 states. Sites that are no longer sampling after the recent adjustment that we've had can still access their data on the dashboard, but the sites won't appear on the map. So when you go to data.wastewaterscan.org, those sites won't be on the map that pops up. But if you go to the chart view, all of the data is still there, and there will be a little tag next to the site when it's selected in the dropdown on the side that just informs you that there is no more data collection happening at that site. So we want to make sure you know that the data is still there. You can still access it, and we're not taking it away. There's just no longer new sampling and data updates happening at those sites. What are we monitoring right now? So we have an exciting update about this today. You've received information in emails, but our important seasonal and emerging respiratory pathogens group that we're monitoring has had a little bit of a change. So as always, we're monitoring SARS-CoV-2, but we are now monitoring influenza A, B, and we had previously been monitoring H5, as you all know, but we have added on the public dashboard H1 and H3. So we now have those 3 influenza A subtype markers, H1, H3, and H5. That are all available. And Amanda is going to talk about that more in a few minutes, and we'll show you where you can find it, and we'll answer all your questions. But we're excited to be able to have more subtyping information available on flu, especially as my kids are back in school, so I feel like it's fall, even though it's 95 degrees here. So we'll eventually get to respiratory virus season. And then we are also, of course, monitoring RSV, human metapneumovirus, and EBD68. Our important enteric pathogens are rotavirus and norovirus G2. And then we have our emerging and outbreak pathogens of concern, kind of a catch-all category that includes Candida auris, hepatitis A, and Mpox. And of course, we always run controls on all of our samples. And then we have the sequencing data on SARS-CoV-2 from a subset of our sites, about 30 sites that have information from sequencing of SARS-CoV-2. A reminder of where you can find a ton of information about our work and the methods behind it. So you will receive these slides in your email as always, so you don't need to hurry with these QR codes, but they're all here available for you. The pre-analytical methods and all of our, kind of standard methods are found in these QR codes. They're protocols.io methods. And then we have a number of preprints and peer-reviewed publications that contain specific information on some of these different viruses that we're monitoring. And these are kind of the papers that we are selecting and highlighting that show the foundation of the work that we are doing as part of the regular monitoring for WastewaterSCAN. So you can scan and look at those to look at, where we have the scientific foundation coming from for these measurements that we're making. A couple updates, new things that we have or things that we want to make sure you're aware of. So there are a few new open access papers. So this paper on Candida auris in wastewater from all across the US is now available in MBio. Spatial and temporal variation in RSV and wastewater. That's an important one as we do come up on respiratory virus season this year, thinking about how we are using that data in wastewater. So that's available in MSphere. And then our H5 paper, which is available in ES&T letters. So these aren't brand new, but reminder that this is important new information that we have for you. And Amanda has put the links to all of these in the chat. So quick question, that can be a quick resource for you, as well as these slides. We also have this really great page on our website that provides an overview of all of our published body of work. So you can go and look through there to see what we have done, what's kind of the body of work that's behind a lot of the measurements that we're making in more detail than just those few papers that we've picked out with those QR codes on the previous page. Amanda's done a lot of work to synthesize it and kind of bring some of the key points of that we've learned from each of those papers and resources to just little bite-sized tidbits of information and links to the full papers should you like to actually read the whole thing. Okay, so I'll talk a little bit about H5 influenza detection in wastewater. We've shown this slide many times. I just want to repeat and remind you that we do have this assay that we have developed for H5. If you are looking for these sequences because you want to order them and you want to use them, or somebody you know does, or you need some assistance, feel free to reach out to us. And the assay is published in that H5 paper that Amanda has already linked. So I just want to remind you that this is what we're using and that it is available for you to also use if you would like to. And here's the data that we have from across the country. So we began the prospective monitoring, including H5, in the WastewaterSCAN program mid-May 2024, so May 15th or 16th, kind of depending on the sampling cadence at different sites. And so far, we have had 92 samples that have tested positive out of almost 6,000 samples that we have analyzed during that time period. We have had those positive detections have occurred at 27 of our WastewaterSCAN sites. And so those are all listed here. This is the heat map view, which is quite similar looking to the one that you'll find on the website, where you can see that the reds are positive, the blues are non-detect, and then the white is where there was no sample taken. So you can see the sampling cadence is a little bit different from site to site. And, some sites have had just one detection at some point, and then there are other places where we've seen kind of more patterns of repeated detections. So yeah, 27 sites overall, and the states where we have had those detections are California, Colorado, Idaho, Iowa, Michigan, Minnesota, South Dakota, Texas. I think we're missing Arkansas. It was hidden by my and Arkansas. So Arkansas and California are the two states where there have not been any herds that have been reported with H5N1, but we have had a couple of detections in wastewater. Other than that, these other states have all had reported infected herds. And this is the map showing the same information. And so what you can see here is the dark states are states where we have had H5 detected in wastewater, and the red dots are sites where we have had H5 detected in wastewater. You can see here the full list of states where there have been confirmed H5N1 outbreaks in livestock. So there are some of those states that either have not had a positive detection in wastewater from us or do not have any sites that are in the WastewaterSCAN program. So yeah, we can absolutely come back to some of this and talk more about it. I'm going to go ahead and pass things forward so that Amanda can tell us more about the H1 and H3 monitoring, but we have this FAQ sheet that's available to help us understand these interpretations. And again, happy to take more questions about the H5 monitoring in a few minutes, and I'll pass it over to Amanda.
Thanks, Marlene. So I'm going to give a quick overview of H1 and H3 so far. Next slide. So as a reminder, we've previously published a paper on H1 and H3 subtypes from several sites in California. I'm going to add that paper to the chat, as well as include our H1 and H3 FAQ on the next slide, I believe. Or no, here's some more information. So we've revised the assay since the first publication, but we feel really strongly about the methods that we have currently. And we rolled this out 2 weeks ago is when we scaled it to all sites. We originally had it on a stage site, but as of Monday this week, the data is now live on the website. Next slide. So here is the FAQ to help with translating the data and just kind of about the assay design. I've included that in the chat as well. Next slide. Most of what we've been seeing is non-detect, which is not surprising given that we're not in peak respiratory season. We've only had a handful of H1 and H3 detections, and most of them have been from the Bay Area. Next slide. So this is a quick video walking us through where you can find this data on the website. So if you go to the left navigational bar, you go to chart, you click on influenza, then you have the subtype drop down. Here is where you can select H1, H3, H5. I'm going to select H1, and then you can add your location. So here we're going to just quickly add in all of our sites. So the default view for this is the line chart. But right now with non-detects, not much is going to show up. So we're going to go to the heat map. So here, as you can see, this blue color means non-detect. And so most of the sites have not had H1 detected so far. Right here, we see one detection in Oceanside, California. And you can do the same for H3. It just quickly updated. Most of them have been non-detect as well. And next we are going to go back to line chart, and we are going to switch over to our subtyping line chart. So here I'm going to pick a location in Idaho. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to toggle on influenza A, H1, H3, and H5. And now in this chart setting, we want to look at the raw data for this. And so the default is to have the PMMOV normalized data and to have it be trend line. So I'm going to toggle those off. And now you can see the individual raw data points here. And so if you hover over an individual point, you're going to be able to see, okay, this is what influenza A M gene concentration was that day compared to right here, this is the H5. You can share this either as uh, a just a PNG file. You can share it as a link, or you can send copy and paste this directly into emails. So that was a pretty quick overview. We're going to include more information in the slides that we send out after the meeting. But high level summary so far is we have had mostly non-detects for H1 and H3. Next slide. So I'm going to quickly go over the category methodology quickly and then hand it over to Stephen, who's going to give us an update. So as a reminder, we have a categorization system that is based on levels, trends, and frequency. Trends tell us how things are changing. Levels tell us whether cases are relatively lower or higher. And then the frequency of detection is important for rarer pathogens such as Mpox, Hep A, C. auris, and EBD68. Next slide. So we have three archetypes for our categorization. We have pathogens that are commonly detected, we have seasonal pathogens, and then we have pathogens that are not commonly detected regardless of season. And the methodology for this is detailed in a lot more information on the data.wastewaterscan.org about page. And I will now hand it over to Stephen, and he's going to give us a quick summary.
Thanks, Amanda. So I'm going to quickly go over and present a high-level summary of all pathogens and provide a little more information on SARS-CoV-2. Just as a reminder, the slides that we will send out afterwards will have more information for the remainder of the pathogens. So just starting with our common pathogens, SARS-CoV-2 is still in the high category. There's a high concentration and no trend. If you look at the past year of data, the concentrations are higher than we were seeing around this time last year, but are not currently as high as we were seeing in December and January. Our other common pathogens, we have noroviruses, which is in the medium level. It's been decreasing over the past few months. Rotavirus is currently in the low concentration, the low category. If you look at our seasonal pathogens, all of those, which are influenza A, influenza B, RSV, and human metapneumovirus, are all in the low category. These are no longer in onset and have had very low levels lately. For our rare pathogens, EBD68 for the first time is at a medium category nationwide. we're right at around 50% of samples in the past 10 days being positive, and levels have been increasing recently. All of our other rare pathogens, which include Mpox, C. auris, and hepatitis A, are in the low category and have had very few positive samples. When you look at levels across the nation, you can kind of see that each of the census regions has had increasing levels recently, especially in the Midwest. And you can see that most samples have been positive and that overall concentrations have been increasing in the past month. And lately, the KP variants have been making up many of the been a larger portion of what we've been seeing. So KP1, KP2, and KP3 have been some most predominant variants. KP2 and KP3 in particular have been increasing lately. And just want to remind you that the sequencing data are from about 1 to 2 weeks ago. So we're kind of looking at data around August 3rd, which is a little bit less recent than some of our other wastewater data. And this is probably not surprising given the increase in levels nationwide, but every region is in the high category at this point, and only a couple plants are in the low category as of now. And the we'll attach slides that have the remainder of the pathogens and more detail on each of those.
So if you have any
Find my
questions about the website,
mute
you
button.
can email us. This email goes to Stephen, Marlene, Allie, and myself, and we will respond to any data-related questions or website questions you have. And as a reminder, we always have a lot of information on the About page, so that's always a good place to start. Like I said, it has our wastewater categorization methodology. It has information on how to use the heat map versus the line chart. How do you copy and paste graphics? How do you create a dashboard to embed to your website? So a lot of information on the About page. And I believe that is all the slides we have. We're happy to answer any questions. I know Marlene has been going through the chat and responding, but if anybody has any questions, please feel free.
Yeah, I've tried to get to some of the questions that have popped up in the chat, but I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, and we have some time. So happy to have people raise their hands.